Thanks everyone for being here today on this beautiful July day I think we've got going on here. So let's see. I have the clicker. So I am John Sutter. I'm the Community Development Director with the City of Crystal, and all right, I have the power. I have the clicker. So on the left is just a small map kind of showing where the Bass Lake Road Station is in relation to some of the other stops on the line north and south of Crystal. And on the right are a couple of renderings of what the Bass Lake Road Station would look like if the project is built. So the project, as you know, has been planned for quite some time. And in 2015, we had a station area planning process, community-based station area planning process. And while that was based on the previous location of the station in the BNSF rail corridor, just slightly different from the new proposed location, a lot of the things that came out of that are still very valid today. And so beginning the next year in 2016, we started working on implementation of that station area plan. So we modified our comprehensive plan to create a 220-acre mixed-use district in that area, centered on Bass Lake Road and West Broadway, which is our main commercial area. We have about 1 million square feet of commercial space in that area. We also reconstructed the streetscape on the north side of Bass Lake Road, across from Becker Park. Can I get a show of hands? How many of you have been down Bass Lake Road in Crystal, west of Bottineau Boulevard? So are you familiar with that strip of small businesses on the north side of Bass Lake Road? So that was where we did the streetscape. What was happening there before is the old streetscape in the 1980s was failing, literally falling apart. And it was actually harming the businesses. And so one of our strategy was basically to help those small businesses rather than provide any kind of direct assistance was, let's get the public realm right. Let's fix our stuff, the stuff that's our responsibility, the city's responsibility. So we rebuilt the streetscape, and thanks to some open minds at Hennepin County's Transportation Department, they let us put in an on-street parallel parking bay, which completely changed kind of the psychology of that strip of small businesses. Since all the businesses that were there in 2018 are still there today, and some of them have actually expanded in that space. So one of the strategies to deal with inevitably higher rents in transit-oriented districts is to take steps so the businesses can become more profitable, they can get more sales, and then they can afford the inevitably higher rents. And that's kind of what we did, and so far it seems to be working in that area. The other thing we did is we adopted some new zoning districts, and we are wide open to high-density residential development in that 220 mixed-use area. And then finally, in 2019 to 2020, we reconstructed Becker Park. Hope some of you have had a chance like today. It's very popular, draws people from all over the region. So since 2016, we have had 2 affordable apartment developments. Well, one is completed, one is about to start construction. And they represent 58 units opened last year, and we expect another 44-unit building to open next year. The exciting thing about that 44-unit building, Lotus Point, is it is kitty corner from the new Bass Lake Road Station. People will be able to live in that building and walk about 200 feet to get to the light rail platform. That provides amazing access to jobs up and down the corridor throughout the region that few residential buildings can. That provides amazing access to jobs up and down the corridor throughout the region that few residential buildings can offer. The other thing that we did is in 2024, we did an update of the station area plan, looking at the new station location and looking at some potential long-term redevelopment possibilities in our town center area. And this fall, our city council is kind of taking this to the next step, and they're going to do a 25-year vision plan for that town center area. And just as an example of the kind of development opportunities that exist in that area, there's the Crystal Gallery Mall, which is a 1980s mall. If we broke up that super block, that massive 8-acre auto-oriented suburban style block and cut it up into smaller pieces that make more sense at a pedestrian scale and for high intensity development. And so some of these images on the top right quarter of the slide is kind of breaking into two parts, and we're now thinking, well, maybe it actually should be broken up into 4 parts to really get it to more of a pedestrian scale. So a lot of what Crystal's dealing with is we don't have a lot of retail vacancy. We're actually doing pretty well for a city of modest homes and moderate incomes, post-World War II type construction. We have a vacancy rate under 5% in our retail area, which is good by anyone's standards, but that can change on a dime, right? One store, one mall, one thing turns over and it totally changes the direction. So we need to be ready for the potential for redevelopment of some of these older suburban style commercial spaces. So with that, are we waiting till the end for questions, or are we doing them individually? It doesn't matter to me. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Please give Mr. Sutter a round of applause. Thank you for your presentation. We're going to keep the train moving down the tracks. We have the city of Robbinsdale here to present on their behalf is Amada Marquez Simula, who's actually the mayor of the city of St. Anthony. So we're going to hear from her representing the city of Robbinsdale. We got that up? All right. You've got next.
All right, Robbinsdale. So I do work for Metro Transit. I'm the community outreach coordinator for Robbinsdale and Crystal. And Robbinsdale was not able to have a staff member here, so I am doing their part to share their update. So, reading some notes. But the background, 2023, the city of Robbinsdale, along with Hennepin County, worked with Bolton and Menk to update city plans in preparation for the Blue Line. This photo really shows downtown Robbinsdale, where the proposed station would be located. And the second proposed station is at Lowry in Minneapolis. That really isn't a redevelopment focus for the city. That's already kind of limited by land, and it's next to the hospital as well. So they're really focusing their energy and on downtown. So yeah, this is showing that this diagonal direction for the Blue Line. You can see some of the landmarks. The Crystal Lake is on the north side, Bottineau Boulevard running diagonally, and then the Old Water Tower, which is a very fond space in Robbinsdale. You can see that on there as well. This shows some proposed BLE line cuts in the city. You can see kind of on the left side there, but also realizing that this could physically divide the community, but instead it can be looked at, as we heard earlier about the Green Line, it can be used as an opportunity for positive growth and to be a bridge, and a connector, but not a barrier. Here is ideas for like this refresh, but not a barrier. Here is ideas for like this refresh, showing that it can evolve over time. There could be some new mixed use development, improve streetscapes and a vibrant downtown feel that's of course on a block west, but then also along Bottineau as well. And then on the bottom left, just want to point out like the pedestrian friendly kind of amenities that will be brought to this to just really rescaping the area. This just is showing again, there's a lot of underused parcels downtown, and so there's some really good opportunities to build up that retail in the center. And then as you can see in the bottom diagram, just bringing it down to that sort of single level family homes so that people can feel like they're in the community's downtown area, but also that it's simply also a residential community. And this is showing the possibility of even like a high-rise apartment building downtown and how that really can be its own thing in one section of Robbinsdale, but still keeping that character of a small town vibe that is all in the background. but this one really showing how much it can be connected. So we saw earlier on the crystal diagram how transit can be this the transit-oriented design, how the pelvic realm can just be ready to meet this growing demand. And they really want to take it to that southwestern corner of the city, which also could be developed. A lot more housing could be on there, and a lot of ways to make more tax revenue available to the community. But in short, this plan just really is to look and turn the BLE from a dividing line into a catalyst for thoughtful growth, stronger connections, and a more vibrant downtown. And so thank you for listening.
Thank you, Amada. We're going to keep going down the tracks. We have next up from the City of Brooklyn Park, Mark Culver.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Mark Culver, and he is our planning director, but you get me. So I am an engineer. I'll jump on Dan's message of engineers are human, but we also do have a heart as well. And yes, thank you, Josh. But I'm really excited to work on this project and work on a lot of the different elements and how this project is really going to transform Brooklyn Park. Yeah, so just as a highlight here, we're going to get 5.4 miles of light rail track. As my mayor would say, the line starts in Brooklyn Park at the Oak Grove Parkway station. And we have 5 stations in Brooklyn Park. Each one of these stations has really got its own character around the station, really different development types and challenges, and a lot of hard work that each station area is going to take for us to really maximize and realize the dream of this really critical investment. At the beginning here, this area is primarily still remnants of potato fields. And that is kind of the history. If you didn't know that, Brooklyn Park is, I was actually surprised to hear this, like we were like the #1 producer of potatoes in the country for a very long period of time. So now all of those fields they're not being farmed, or very few of them are being farmed now, and they're ready to develop. And they've been ready to develop for a while. And this line, if you've heard us talk about 2.0 versus 1.0 on the design of the line, I would say this is like 3.0, 4.0 for a land use vision for Brooklyn Park in this area. You know, if you didn't know, Target, and one of the reasons the Oak Grove station was so attractive here was because Target made a large investment in Brooklyn Park here, and they had a huge vision for a third downtown. And that's changed, and there are economic reasons for that change. And so now we have to revision how this area is going to be. And we've been spending a lot of time over the last year on what is that actually going to do. And in the purple here you see a desire and an expectation for very strong transit-oriented development, mixed use, high levels of residential and retail and that. And then in the blue areas down here, we've designated this as a biotech area. We're really looking to attract med tech type of uses, research laboratories, maybe some light manufacturing, office spaces, but also mix in some residential in that as well. And then as we get over on the west side of 169 and north of there, very strong focus on residential, a wide variety of densities of residential. But you see these yellow dots, the yellow dotted lines, we want to make sure that we have strong bike and pedestrian connections from those areas. The yellow dotted lines, we want to make sure that we have strong bike and pedestrian connections from those areas, ultimately to this blue dot here, to really connect all these areas to that Oak Grove Station Parkway. This is really going to be a catalyst for the development of this whole area, and we're really looking forward to taking advantage of that. And then this is, some of the things that we have been working on south of 610 and in the areas that are going to be more redevelopment areas versus development areas is making sure that we are aware of the existing residents and the impacts to them along West Broadway where the line is going to go. We'll be working with the project team, installing a privacy fence along West Broadway to create, I don't want to say a barrier, but to create some separation between what we see as a really vibrant corridor of transit, traffic, and people from the residential uses that are already there, the backyards of homes of people. And we really want to turn that into an amenity for those people. Also, focusing some really strong streetscape elements on our core intersections and station areas through the corridor. And one thing that we're being very, very intentional about and trying to be as proactive as much as possible is anti-displacement as well. We're creating some anti-displacement policies and efforts, working with communities. We are very fortunate to have a very strong group of locally family-owned ethnic businesses in Brooklyn Park along this corridor, in some of the retail areas along this corridor. We want to preserve that. We want to make sure we strengthen those businesses. We want to help those businesses. We want to make sure they don't go anywhere, that they feel that they're being displaced because of this project. So we want to make sure that this project is happening with them and not to them. In that regard. So we're going to be looking forward to taking advantage of some of the grants that are going to be out there, but also helping them on a local level at the city level as well. And then taking advantage of some of the investments for federal funding with Safe Routes to School, Safe Streets. We actually have a lot more on our website, some QR codes up here. The DREAM document is actually also a really great document. It talks a lot about this as well, but some resources on our website that give more information about that Northwest growth area and our other initiatives along the Blue Line. So thank you.
Thank you. Give him a round of applause, please. Next up, the City of Minneapolis, represented by Jim Vole from CPED.
Is this working? Okay, good. Well, yeah, as Nika said, I'm Jim Vole. I'm a city planner with CPED, the Community Planning and Economic Development Department. Bear with me because there's a lot of stuff for me to manage. So I want to talk a little bit about the history of our policies around transit lines, and even before the bullet points on this slide, in 1999, the city, replaced a 20-year-old comprehensive plan and a 40-year-old zoning code, and really reaffirmed the idea of some concepts. I won't get into all of them, but one of them was a transit-oriented development, which you hear a lot about. Another is traditional urban design, which is, buildings up to the street, mixed use, and all of that. And then, so that has been a long-established thing in the city of Minneapolis. But then we also do small area plans for areas, and in 2008, a really important plan that many of you may have been a part of was West Broadway Alive. And I'll show you a slide about that and the guidance there, but that was a really important effort to determine the land use and transit-oriented development on West Broadway. And then a lot of that language in that plan was incorporated into our last comprehensive plan adopted in 2020, which is Minneapolis 2040. And we will be getting into stationary planning. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But the point of all of this is that we've had a long history of, we've heard a lot of people talk about transit-oriented design. We've had a long history of that in Minneapolis. Our plans and our zoning codes support that. We have the blue line, the green line extension, and now the blue line extension. So we have a lot of experience with this, and a lot of our plans and policies support this type of development. So just since a large part of the corridor is on West Broadway in Minneapolis, you can see that this map was the land use policy at the time. And really the important thing here is the red areas say, mixed use, multi-story, higher density development is allowed, not required, not not taking people's property to do it, but that's the type of development that's allowed. And then on the curve, it was more multifamily residential. And we changed that in 2040 to allow that to be mixed use as well on the curve, because there were quite a few, and are quite a few, historic storefront buildings there. And so when you go to Minneapolis 2040, this is a citywide document, our comprehensive plan, and it talks about the type of development we expect to see around transit station areas. And as you know, we have them on the Blue Line in South Minneapolis and on the Central Corridor going through the university area and downtown. And so I won't read all of these, but the mixed use, higher density development near transit stations is downtown. And so I won't read all of these, but the mixed use, higher density development near transit stations is oftentimes the goal. We've heard a lot of talk about transit-oriented development and the land use and transit connection. So our plan supports that, and would likely be the kind of guidance we'd see around the stations that are proposed here in North Minneapolis. However, we do know that there are some areas like around the James Station and the Lowry Station and along 21st where we have single-family homes and vacant land and smaller scale businesses, and starting a stationary planning process. Hopefully this fall, maybe first quarter of 2026. And the reason that I can't give you a straight answer on that is because the money that we have for that planning process that we worked with our partners at Met Transit and Met Council to obtain is from the federal government. And so there have been, I'll just leave it, there's been some uncertainty as to how we get that money. But it seems to be moving forward, and so we're planning to move into that station area planning process. To be moving forward, and so we're planning to move into that station area planning process. So this isn't my slide, I'm sorry, but if I have, that's my presentation, so if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer. Sure. So the stationary planning will also look at what they're calling the Plymouth Avenue Station, although it's on Washington. And we are aware of all those streets. So, one of the things we talk with the project office a lot about is even thinking about what would happen if the viaducts would ever come down. So that would be part of, I guess I was sort of reading becoming a transit mall, and there won't be cars there anymore. A lot of people have said, although I think this is true a concern along the entire corridor, right, is that there's a barrier, and how do we mitigate that, and how do we make pedestrian and other connections so that the North Loop doesn't end at 10th, or for people along West Broadway doesn't end north or south, depending on where you live. Hi.
Thank you. Does any of the members want to comment on that?
Well, I mean, to me, that seems pretty corridor-wide, but I will just say all of the cities are required to, so to the 2040 question, we're all required to update our comprehensive plans for our cities every 10 years. And I guess in that sense, they have a 10-year time span. We certainly look out further than that, but we're redoing them every 10 years. And that'll be happening again here, independent of the stationary planning for all of our communities. And then for vertical development, that's going to be a different answer in every community, but Minneapolis certainly allows it. Its transit stations, very tall buildings, probably taller than most people would like. But ultimately, I think what we find in Minneapolis is 6 stories is about where it goes, regardless of what, in most areas other than downtown, regardless of what you allow, just because the construction costs change. But where land values support it, we'll see taller buildings, and in Minneapolis we allow it. But I can't answer that for the rest of the communities, so I'll let anybody else. Probably a question for the project team, but we do everything we can to address that. Oh yeah, sorry. I'm gumming up your program, sorry. So, I mean, that would be my response to those things.
Do any of the other folks on the panel have anything to add? All right, please give them a warm applause. John Sutter, City of Crystal,